Proper planning prevents poor performance. The old ones are the best. So you've nailed your why and you have a mandate. But what happens next? Well, proper prior planning prevents piss poor performance. I mentioned in part 1 about the need to front load your work with a good why to achieve great results. It's the same with your project. If you don't have a plan, how do you know what you're going to do, when you're going to do it, and who's going to do it? How do you know how long it'll take or how much it'll cost? Drum roll please. I'd like to introduce you to our cutting edge, never seen before planning kit. Meet our cutting edge planning tools. We all need a way of fathoming out big jobs and making it manageable. Or as the phrase goes, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Let's look at the planning process in more detail. Example, building a house. Question, what are the key tasks and activities you need to create this dream home? Answer, well, I know, I need to get planning permission sorted. I've got to find contractors to do the work for me. I need to dig the footings, I'll need a roof, I need to design my kitchen, and so on. There are a lot of ducks to line up for this dream home. You might also have some constraints to consider. Maybe Bob, your builder, isn't free up till October. But you know Bob's the best man for the job. You can't control that. You'll need to wait for him. Can we fix it? Yes, we can. You know that the planning cycle at your local council will take at least 3 months. Again, that's a constraint. You can't control that. It's something that you need to build into your plans. You know that when the ready-mix concrete comes to fill in the footings need to be dug and ready. Otherwise, the concrete's going to go off pretty quickly. I just listed there a load of jobs that need doing, and that wasn't the whole story. Of course, these jobs have a logical order. You can't put the roof on if the walls aren't up yet. You need to plaster the kitchen before you fit it and get the first fix electrics done. But what can you do? If you're anything like me and choosing colours and layout can take a while, you could get the kitchen designed. You could choose your worktops and your tiles. Not every task has to be done one after another. Use your time wisely. Okay, let's talk about the planning steps. First, you need to identify the key tasks and activities. What are the tasks that need to be undertaken to make the change successful? How long will it take to implement the change? E.g., what's the lead time? What constraints could there be? 2. Place the key tasks on the plan. In what order would you logically expect to undertake these tasks? Roughly, how long do you expect each task to take? And when would it start? These give us our start and end milestones. Are there any of the other tasks that are prerequisites, e.g., need to be done before another task? These are dependencies. Are there key themes you can bundle tasks into, e.g., all system-related tasks, for example? These are your work streams. Remember, a plan is only ever your best guess. It can and almost certainly will change. What was the point in creating the plan then? Because you must start somewhere. The real secret to delivering a great project is the project manager's best mate, RAID. Fear not, more to come on that shortly. Let's take a closer look. Here's how the plan might look. Easy, right? Question, what if you don't know what's involved in building a house? Answer, that's okay, you've never built a house before. How would you know this stuff? You'd ask people who know more about it than you do. Your mates, the builder, the tradespeople, you Google it, you read a book, you research it. Then you do your best to get the right heads around the table to work out what needs doing, when, and roughly how long it will take. It's always a team effort. You've worked together to figure it all out. Your initial plan was your first best effort. You won't have thought of everything. You can't know everything. Someone might change their mind. You might come across an unforeseen problem, like a leaky drain when you're digging in your footings. It's not all predictable. The better you set yourself up to handle the stuff that goes off plan, the more likely you are to deliver a great project. So you've got a fantastic plan. Time to start actively managing that plan through to implementation. Change will happen. You've spent a load of time making sure that your plan is right. You need to make as much time as you can managing off plan too. What is certain in change is change itself. I guarantee stuff will come along and send you off track. And that's where managing RAID comes in. RAID definitions. Fact. RAID is your biggest ally. In life, I'm a very positive person, but as a project manager, I'm a bit of a doom goblin. That's my job. I need to make sure that I capture everything that might go wrong in the plan that I've just created. That's why we identify risks and issues. What are the differences between risks and issues? A risk is something that hasn't happened yet and that comes with a probability or a likelihood of that risk actually happening. And it also comes with an impact. What would it mean if it actually did happen? That's different to an issue because an issue has already happened. There's no probability, it's already history. There's just an impact. For example, there's been some exceptionally cold, frosty weather. That means the brickwork on the build has taken longer. If I'd identified that weather risk earlier and managed it a bit better, I might have talked to Bob about the impacts of bad weather before it happened. We could have agreed to put a bit of contingency time in the plan and managed expectations. I could have put some money aside because I know it's going to take longer. Or I might have just said, actually Bob, if it happens, it's fine. I have to accept that might have an impact on my project build time. The key thing here is that at least I'm managing the risk. And by managing it, I'm stopping it from turning into an issue. If we talk about it up front, at least there's something that I could do about it to mitigate the impact of it happening. A risk has not happened yet. An issue has happened. And if I manage my risk really well, I prevent most of them becoming issues later down the line. In life, we make assumptions all the time without even realising it. Projects are no different. Often, in a very detailed, complex programme of change, you check all those assumptions that you've made. You'd validate them, make sure that they were right, but sometimes it's just as easy to take that assumption and turn it into a risk and manage it in that way. So for example, in the house build, I might assume that the weather will be kind to me. Instead, it's better to turn that assumption into a risk. There is a risk that bad weather will slow down my build. That way, I'll face into the what ifs early on and manage it smarter. Turning assumptions into risks and managing them as you do makes risk and issue management much easier. The last RAID item is D for dependencies. Your electrician is dependent on you choosing the light fittings to do the job. If you don't make those choices at the right time, she's probably going to go on to another job and you could lose your slot time. A dependency is really just another milestone in your plan. It's another thing that needs doing that perhaps you need someone else to do for you. That milestone could carry risks, so you would manage those as you would any other risks on your project. Another project acronym we use is RACI. RACI stands for Responsible, Accountable, Consulted, Informed. The RACI is just a written list of who is doing what for you. It really is as simple as that. So just like you have teams and you help define roles in those teams, you try and get clear on what it is that they need to do and you communicate that to everybody. A project is no different. As a project manager, you can't oversee the project and do all the doing at the same time. It's therefore important that you identify who is doing what on your plan. This means that people are clear about what they need to do, people are clear about what other people are doing, and no one says, "Oh, I thought Dave was doing that." It's important to write this down and play it back to all of the people involved in the form of the RACI. You're just defining who is doing what for you. R, responsible. So, by way of an example, if you're R for responsible, you're assigned to do the work. That means that if you're the head waiter and the dinner needs to be on the table at 5 p.m. and it's not there until 6 p.m, you're responsible for its lateness. It's not about blame, but you see where I'm going. A, accountable. Using that same example, if you're the head butler, you might be accountable for dinner service overall, but you're not the one physically going to cook the dinner or bring it to the table yourself. You are the name in the frame for making sure it comes together. C, consulted. Consulted would be someone that you just need to go to and have a chat with. It might be, "I'm going to make this change. Is there anything that you need to tell me in order to land that successfully?" I'm going to consult with them and make sure that I'm clear on that. I is for informed. Informed is, I just need to let someone know that I'm doing something. Nobody likes surprises. The key thing here, agreeing all this up front and writing it down stops the awkward conversation further down the line that says, "Oh, I'm sorry, I thought someone else was doing that." The time it takes to agree a RACI early on far outweighs the time spent arguing and delaying the project process later down the line. You've got your mandate from your sponsor, you've got your amazing plan, you're managing your risks and issues brilliantly, and everyone knows what they're doing. Sorted. Then, Charlie comes along with a better idea, and he says, "Actually, I want a gold-plated roof on the house." "Thanks, Charlie," you say. "That's quite difficult to source. That might take me a little while, and it's going to be a bit more expensive." So this is where change control comes in. We don't go through the whole change curve again, where we get shock and denial and anger at this request that Charlie's made. It's our job as project manager to lay out the ask, display what the impacts are, how much it will cost, how much longer it will take, and go and ask for a decision from the sponsor. Regardless of your own opinion, whether a gold-plated roof is a good idea or not, it's our obligation as project manager to write it down and play it back to the sponsor for a decision. If they agree, that'll be the new way on your project. We'll record the change and we'll crack on. You're unlikely to have a bunch of Charlies all the time in your project, but you are likely to be asked to make changes. Once the house starts to come to life, folk will start to realise more about what they want and what they don't want. That's change control. People can be allergic to the word governance. They tend to think it's a heavy, bureaucratic annoyance. But really simply, this is just about your sponsor, the person that you're doing the work for, the person that's holding the purse strings, knowing how things are going from the point that they gave you the mandate. It's just about making sure that you're telling them what the progress of the plan is. You might need some decisions from that person to help you move the project along. They'll want to know about any risks and issues that threaten their plans. Usually, we only talk about anything that's high impacting or very likely to happen. We don't normally sweat the small stuff with the sponsor. That's what we as the project manager get paid for. We also talk about change control. You might have heard of things like steering group meetings. It's good to have an agreed schedule of when and how often you'll report back. Defining the outcome up front, closely aligned to the why, is key, but often missed in change delivery. And that is defining the outcome up front using critical success factors. We've spent loads of time designing and building the house, but how do we know when we've actually got the house that we set out to achieve at the very beginning? It isn't just about structure. It won't just be about the gold roof that Charlie wanted. It's also about the taps. Do they work? Does the toilet flush? Have we got the lights that we needed? Do your family say, I absolutely love this house? These are the things that we need to define right at the very beginning so that we know when we've got there and we've done a good job. We call these the critical success factors. You've probably heard of SMART before: specific, measured, achievable, realistic, timed. The more specific you can be about the outcome, the better. Define what it needs to look like so that you know that you've achieved it. One last thing before we implement is communicating the change. Some people will want to know what you're doing, so it's important to define your communications plan. You don't want to go to all the time and effort of creating this amazing house without shouting it from the rooftops. You might want to tell your neighbours. They might need to give permission for the change. You might want to tell your extended family because you might just want to show off what a nice new house you've got. Regardless, you need to share the information of the change that you're making with them. Next up, let me give you some comms tips. What is the purpose of the communication that you're doing? Is it to show off? Is it a bit of fanfare? Or is it to provide vital information that you need someone to do moving forward? Who's the audience? Generally, they fall into two camps: internal or external. How then do we actually communicate? The method in which we communicate is key. Are we going to do a big TV advertising thing to our external customers, or is it just simply an email to tell them what the change is? Frequency and timing is also really important. We don't want to tell people too soon in the journey because they might forget it by the time we do it. We also want to think about how many times we speak to somebody as well. We might need to land the message a number of times before we actually implement it. If you've been clear on your why, this will help you. What is the change? Why are we making it? How are we going to make it? And who are we making it to? Implement your changes. Here we are. Finally, you're ready to implement your changes. This is where you get ready to launch it to the rest of the world. A key point here is this might just be phase one, and generally, with a lot of changes what we do, it's always good to try and do some kind of pilot just to make sure we're doing the right thing before we go out to a larger audience. In our house build, we might want to do the pool and the garden second, for example. The key is get it ready. Have we done everything that we need to do before we're going to take it to the outside world? Have we ticked everything off on our checklist? We want to get it out, we want to test it with a small audience first, but then we need to measure how it's going. Remember the critical success factors? Have we delivered with that small audience what we thought we would? And if we haven't, why haven't we? Because that would help us get it tweaked, and that will help us improve it, ready for us going again with a larger audience. It's a wrap. Almost. There are just a couple of key things that often get forgotten, and probably one of the most important as well. It's around closing down the piece of work. Making sure you revisit scope, your why, what you set out to achieve. Have we done everything that our sponsor paid for and wanted us to do? Get some feedback, so it's not just quantitative feedback for your critical success factors, it's also qualitative. What did the family say? What did the customers say? What did the people that you work with say? Some of those will be lessons learned. There'll be some things that you could have done better. This is generally a little bit of learning curve delivered in a change-oriented way. You'll definitely have some things that if you were going to do it again, you would do it differently. And the key thing is to write them down so the next time you do it, you've already got those lessons learned. You're not doing them over and over again. Lastly, you need to hand over the keys, metaphorical or real, to the owners. Make sure you transfer any knowledge, notes, key information to them. And then lastly, celebrate. After all that hard work and effort, you deserve to celebrate your success, thank your team, and get ready for the next big thing. And that is change in a nutshell.